But I want to start out this way. My interest in multicultural education in many ways is tied to my struggle to learn about myself and my people of Mexican and Latino descent, particularly in this country. And for you to understand my particular struggle is to stop for a moment and to imagine what it would be like to stand before a mirror. You can all do that, right? What if you stood before the mirror and you saw no reflection? And you go back, and let's say you go back another day. You stand before the mirror, but now you see a reflection, but it's incredibly distorted. It's ugly. Not in the physical sense, but it's ugly in the sense that it's showing something that looks like it's putrefied, something that's rotten, something that's horrible. When I started college in the mid-1960s, my first experience with the college curriculum is that people like me had no place. It's not that bad things were said about us. We were just absent. It's like we didn't exist. After a while, the fact that I was one of about 27 students at this particular university, one of 27 of my background out of 24,000, was enough to cause interest. What are you doing here? And that very question was very disorienting. I had just turned 18. I had never in my life had anyone question my being, my existence, and that's what that question was doing. Very quickly, the point became that people were going to answer the question for me. Their question, their answers. And their answers were all distorted. They were based on notions that I belonged to a group of people that was not worthy to be in a university. That I belonged to a group of people who historically had been deviants, and basically that we were not wanted. My interest in becoming part of the Chicano movement, and in this class we've talked a little bit about it, but my interest in becoming part of the Chicano movement in large part was to find out why it was that I lived in a society that couldn't even recognize that my people existed, and secondly, when it did acknowledge that we were present, projected this distorted image of us, one that was very distorted. Now, over the years, I've tried very hard to get answers to those questions, but some of the things that I've come to understand is that sometimes when societies are exploiting and oppressing a people, the society does not want to understand or to accept that it is exploiting someone. And people of Mexican descent, Latino descent have been exploited in at least two ways. One, as cheap labor in this country. And another way, as people who live in areas of the Americas that the United States has historically used to draw resources. We call it colonialism. And we as Americans oftentimes feel very uncomfortable because we don't view ourselves as a country that has a history of exploitation of other parts of the world. And I know that many of my students get upset with that very discussion. But from my perspective, when you look at Chicanos, look at Latinos in the United States, at least since the 1970s, so many of us are here because of America's economic policies. So one of the things that I came to understand is that this negative view of people of Mexican descent, Central Americans, Latin Americans, was in part based on a society's unwillingness to accept that our exploitation, our suppression, was in large measure due to American society, not to our deficiencies. And that's a big, big issue, because even today, when we look around, still hear the question, what are you doing here? We belong here. We are part of this country. And the key thing for us as Americans, as people of color who are trying to create a just and good society, multicultural education becomes important because we have, and I'm going to use Dr. Karinga's word here, we have truths that no one else speaks. And we also have the vantage point of having lived this experience. Not just having read about it, but having lived it. And attempting to make sense of it ourselves and then share with the rest. So each one can teach one. And that really is what I believe multicultural education is about. Each one of us teaching our particular view of reality to the others. And sometimes we're going to clash. There's no way around it. But struggle is good. Struggle is good. So I had a complete history here for you, but it's okay.